Good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. We're going to get started. Welcome to our fifth of a series of COVID conversations sponsored by the California Immunization Coalition and the American Academy of Pediatrics in California. We have a really good program today. We have two amazing speakers who are rock stars in the social media world, Dr. Alex McDonald and Dr. Todd Woolen. So here's a few housekeeping tidbits. So all your lines are muted for the duration, but we do encourage you to ask questions. We will be moderating the questions during the talk, so please use the question box on the lower right-hand corner of your control panel, and then we will ask questions at the end of each presentation. If you have additional questions, you can email us afterwards at info@immunizeca.org, and we will email a response after the webinar. Next. So real briefly, the California Immunization Coalition is a 501c3 nonprofit public-private partnership dedicated to achieving and maintaining full immunization protection for all Californians. And we are one of the sponsors of this webinar, along with the American Academy of Pediatrics in California, which is a partnership of the 3 local California AAP chapters. Next. I am one of your moderators today. My name is Eric Ball. I'm a primary care pediatrician with the CHOC Primary Care Network, and I am on the board of the California Immunization Coalition, and I'm joined today, as every day, by Dr. Pia Ponaraj, who is a Associate Professor of Pediatrics at the Keck School of Medicine at USC, and a Director of the Pediatric Immunization Advancement Lab at Children's Hospital Los Angeles, and she is also on the board of the California Immunization Coalition. So to start with, we are going to have Dr. Ponaraj give us a brief update of the what's going on with Johnson & Johnson and the venous thrombosis issue. And she's going to give a brief update of what was discussed at the ACIP meeting today. So I'm going to throw this over to Pia.
Great. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Just given all the current events the last couple of days, we thought that it was important to discuss this. So as I'm sure you've all heard, there are some concerns about rare clotting events after the COVID-19 adenovirus vector vaccines. And so the 2 specific vaccines are AstraZeneca and Janssen or Johnson & Johnson. So AstraZeneca is actually approved in 118 countries. Most of Europe is giving that vaccine. It's awaiting emergency use authorization here in the United States, and it requires 2 doses. The Janssen or Johnson & Johnson vaccine actually has had emergency use authorization in the United States since February. It's also being given in South Africa. The benefit of Johnson & Johnson is that it requires only 1 dose and it's easy storage. So it's doesn't need the -70 freezers like the messenger RNA vaccines. And so it's thought that it can be given to many people that are in more rural areas or difficult places to reach, or people that can only come for 1 dose of the vaccine. So you've heard about these rare thrombotic events. It started with the AstraZeneca vaccine, mostly because that was approved first and was given. So over 34 million doses have been given around the world, most of those in Europe. And there have been 108 cases of cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, or CVST, reported, most of those also with thrombocytopenia, which is very rare that the thrombocytopenia occurs with the CVST. And in addition, there have been 138 other thromboses in other areas of the body, also with thrombocytopenia. This has led to 56 deaths so far. Most cases have been in women under 60 years old. And so on April 7th, 2021, the European Medical Agency's Safety Committee issued a report that concluded that there was a strong association and probable causal link between the AstraZeneca vaccine and these rare clotting events. In the New England Journal of Medicine, just released this week, the possible mechanism is an immune thrombotic thrombocytopenia that's mediated by platelet activating antibodies against platelet factor 4. And this is something that's very similar clinically to heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. So again, rare events, but somewhat concerning. And so next slide, please. So Johnson & Johnson, this is the timeline for the vaccine here in the United States. So it received emergency use authorization at the end of February 27th. The ACIP met and made interim recommendations to go ahead with the vaccine. Vaccination began on March 2nd. And then between March 19th and April 12th, there have been 6 cases of CVST. And those also all were associated with thrombocytopenia, and it was reported to VAERS. And through the VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, CDC and FDA began collecting the records and began all the investigation. So that the 6th case was reported on April 12th and April 13th, yesterday, the CDC and FDA recommended a pause in vaccination with the J&J vaccine. They also issued a health alert so that physicians and healthcare providers could be aware to look out for this, and the investigation continues. So overall, 7.2 million doses have been given as of the end of, up until April 12th. And there are those 6 cases. So the case rate is 0.83 cases per million doses administered. The age range for those 6 cases is 18 to 48 years old, onset 6 to 13 days after vaccination. All occurred in white female. We found out today in the from the ACIP meeting that there was also 1 male individual who had thrombosis during the vaccine trial, but who received the J&J vaccine, but there was also 1 in the placebo group who obviously received the placebo. Those were not CVST cases, they were thrombosis in other parts of the body. So just as a comparison, the background rate of CVST is also very rare. So 0.22 to 1.57 cases per 100,000 individuals. The median age is 37 years old, and it's also female predominance with a 3-to-1 ratio. Next, so but the concern, however, is that even though the case rate overall is relatively low, 0.83 per million of doses administered, if you look just at the occurrence in the 1.4 million doses that were given to women between 20 to 50 years old, then there's a concern that maybe that case rate is higher than the expected rate, the expected background rate of CVST. And so that is the issue that the ACIP discussed today in their emergency meeting. And therefore, they recommended to continue the pause for 7 to 14 more days as the investigation continues, because we want to know, at least in the next 2 weeks, how much, if there's going to be new cases that are reported now that physicians and healthcare providers are aware. And so I think that this entire investigation really speaks to how important the VAERS system and how this has really worked the way it's supposed to work. So VAERS is the nation's early warning system for vaccine safety. So as you know, all of the vaccine trials were in between 40 to 70,000 individuals that were in the trials, but we're talking about cases in the 100,000s to millions before we can see a case. And so these cases were reported. It's a passive reporting system, but again, a very important one for any of these rare events. If there's any, even if you as a provider are not sure, to be able to put that into the system, and then once it's seen that there's more than one of these rare events, then an investigation begins. And so I think, again, this really speaks to the fact that that we have this early warning system in place, that physicians and other providers are reporting there, that CDC and FDA were very quick to put the pause on the vaccine and to do the investigation, and they're not releasing approving the use of the vaccine yet until the investigation is complete. Again, also to put things in perspective, the rate of an individual going to the ICU for severe COVID is actually up to 6 per 100,000, so much higher than the rate of these rare thrombotic events. But it's still very important to investigate, especially since we have other very good and safe vaccines available here in the United States. So this here just tells you how to report any adverse events to the VAERS system. You can go online, you can call, you can email, and if you're contacted, please do provide all the information that's needed to help them conduct the investigation. So again, really, I think the most important point is that the safety system is in place and is working, just as evidenced by what is happening right now with the J&J vaccine. So in about a week to 2 weeks, we will have more information. The ACIP will meet again, and then they will decide at that point what the recommendation might be. Will it be J&J is only recommended for those 50 and older, or something else? We won't know until that investigation is complete. All right, so that's it for J&J, but if you have further questions, please feel free to put those questions into the question box, and we'll try to summarize and answer those questions at the end. So now I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Alex McDonald. He is a family practice physician and a sports medicine specialist. He practices at Kaiser Permanente and is also a clinical professor at the Kaiser Permanente School of Medicine. He also serves on the board of the San Bernardino County Medical Society. He is involved with family medicine residents and sports medicine fellows. He's a team physician for the California State University of San Bernardino and Upland High School. In his free time, he enjoys running, riding his bike, very active activities, and he's going to talk today about This Is Our Shot, which has really taken off wonderfully. So thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting too. So I should give a caveat before I go. I get very excited and I speak very quickly, so I'll try to slow myself down here and make sure that my words are intelligible and that you're all on the same page. I'm going to time myself too, so I don't go over time, because I tend to sometimes get excited about things too. So what is This Is Our Shot? So This Is Our Shot, and our sister or brother organization, oh, sorry, go back one, is Vacunate Ya, which is our Spanish-speaking component. And it's really important. Our work is we're not simply translating things into Spanish, because we think that loses a lot of its value and effectiveness too. As those of you that are bilingual, you can see that This Is Our Shot and Vacunate Ya are not literal translations of one another, but sort of the essence is the same. So this developed out of a organization, a coalition within the California Medical Association, particularly some young physicians and the young physicians section. We got together. One of my co-founders did a lot of community organizing. I did a lot of social media work, and we combined forces to develop This Is Our Shot. And this actually began even before the vaccines were on the radar screen. Well, before they were approved, at least back in November, the fall in November. Really kind of, and then we sort of quickly pivoted once the vaccines became the biggest issue, to really coalesce around too. So we wanted something that was sort of fun. We thought about My COVID Vax, or This Is Our Vax, This Is My Vax, but really This Is Our Shot is really the phrase we settled upon, and our is really the key word here. It's all of us. It's not about me, it's not about you, it's about all of us collectively working together and doing our part to build vaccine trust. Okay, next slide, please. So really, what is our goal? Our goal is to really increase and elevate the voice of healthcare heroes within your community to really build trust. It's not about a physician telling you to get a vaccine. It's about your physician telling you to get or recommending the vaccine, I guess I should say. And so really my vision for this is that we have every single physician in America or the world, right, will speak up, will talk within their communities, social online communities especially, because that's where a lot of these conversations are having, and to actually share good, trusted, accurate, medically good information. Let's just leave it at that too. So, you know, it's been going on since basically end of November. We already had over 25,000 individuals sort of use the hashtag, elevate their voice, speak out publicly about vaccines as well too. And, you know, we've been rapidly gathering impressions across the social media space as well too, to really try to help move the needle and really kind of fight and combat a lot of the misinformation and disinformation that's going on in these online communities as well too. So we'll talk more about that in a bit too. Perfect. So really it's about trust. You know, the science has done amazing work. The operations and the rollout of this vaccine has, although been a little bit bumpy, I think we're finally hitting our stride. And now it's about trust, particularly those people who are hesitant about getting the vaccine, right? Most of the people who have been vaccinated were the easy ones, right? And now we're moving into this phase, especially here in California, where as of, I think tomorrow, anyone 16 and over is eligible to receive a vaccine. And it's gonna be becoming more and more challenging as this time progresses and we get more and more people vaccinated to reach those people who are vaccine hesitant and those people who have questions. We know we're not going to reach sort of the anti-vaxxers, if you will. We know we've already had those people who are really dedicated and want their vaccine, have already been vaccinated or soon to be. So we're reaching this inflection point here where it's going to be harder and harder to share good information, to speak up, and to get people to be trusted enough to get the COVID vaccine as well too. Next slide, please. So again, here's the problem, right? So the Kaiser Family Foundation did great research showing that, you know, 8 out of 10 people said, you know, when it's their turn, their doctor, their nurse, or their other healthcare provider will help them make this decision whether the vaccine is right for them too, right? These numbers here have X% of Americans, including X% of healthcare workers are hesitant to get the vaccine. The reason these numbers are X is because these numbers are constantly changing. And really the solution is us. Right, we are the most trusted messenger, not about a doctor, about your doctor who you have that relationship with too, which is why it's so important that every single person speak up. Just as an example, I've been posting a lot on social media about the vaccine and providing good information. I got a message from a friend in high school who I haven't seen or spoken to it for 30 years, sent me a message being like, hey, thanks for the information. I signed up to get my COVID vaccine, right? So you never know who your voice is going to reach and who within your networks. We all have these people within our networks, be they in real life or be virtual. So it's really important that everyone does their job because you never know who's going to hear your message or who's going to see your message. Next slide, please. And really the reason we're thinking about this, especially in the social media space and the digital space, is one, that's where a lot of the misinformation lies and the disinformation, if you will. And let's be honest, the anti-vaxxers are very, very well funded and they're very, very well organized. Again, we'll talk about that more later. But really, if you look at some of this data from Pew Research, most people, almost over half of people get a lot of their information often or sometimes from social media, and 68% of people use some kind of a web or an app-based program to get those news as well too. And then if you look at the breakdown on the right side of the slide there by age, younger people less than 18, 29, the majority, 42% of them, get their news on social media, right? It's pretty scary. So if we are not providing good information and good news on social media, we are missing a huge portion of our potential audience as well. Next slide, please. So really, you know, what are we doing? We are trying to help provide health heroes, whether that you're a nurse, a doctor, a pharmacist, or else you really are passionate about vaccines. We're trying to help provide mostly healthcare workers, but anyone who wants to, the tools to have these conversations, right? So this is obviously a little slide. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir with this group about, you know, asking questions and really listening to the answer, creating alignment with safety in terms of the common goals, and then also finding some common ground and some common goals amongst that as well too, right? You know, I'm nervous about getting the COVID vaccine because I heard it might cause a blood clot. As an example, and then aligning that safety and saying, you know what, I'd be really scared too about getting a blood clot. You know, I treat patients who have blood clots all the time, and yada yada yada, right? And I really care about your safety, and I don't want you to have a blood clot. And then so we can find some common goals that we both don't want you to have a blood clot, as an example. And the risk of getting COVID or not getting vaccinated, at least as of this point, is the risk of that, of not getting vaccinated, is higher than the risk of getting vaccinated, right? Obviously, that's a very pertinent example in yesterday in today's news. But just as an example, we're really trying to help teach people these conversations. Now, the American Academy of Pediatrics and the California Academy of Pediatrics, you guys are the heroes when it comes to vaccine conversations as well too. Now, I practice family medicine, so I have a lot of pediatrics in my pediatrics on my patient panel as well too, and I have this conversation quite often. But let's be honest, pediatricians, you guys are the rock stars. You guys do this all the time, every day, and we need to use those tools to help educate all the other physicians and people that maybe are not as well versed in this as well. So that's again one kind of piece of the training that we're trying to do to provide individuals. Next slide, please. All right, so our organization is awesome. We have all these allies and all these sort of medical organizations across the country that really want to help engage with us and engage with their members as well too. So it's really exciting to see kind of the energy and the enthusiasm around this as well, because we think people realize that the online space is really kind of the next frontier here. We're very good at talking within the exam room with patients and within the hospital, but we need to expand our voice beyond as well. Next slide, please. All right, just some examples here. I'm a Red Sox fan. I'm from New England originally, so when Fenway Park used hashtag "This is our shot" on their jumbotron, like I got a little giddy inside too. But there have been great webinars from the American Nurses Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics here as well. It's pretty exciting to see people that are really engaging in these conversations. We've done a lot of cool graphics as well too. Some of them are just kind of more fun and cutesy, and some of them are just kind of to help build awareness and build branding of this too. So if you guys are on social media, if you guys see the hashtag "This is our shot" and some cool graphic, then please engage it, please like it, please share as well. So just to see kind of what we're doing in the digital space too. Next slide, please. It's really fun. We've done a lot of webinars with March for Science as well, and a lot of really prominent individuals across the country and physicians have spoken up as well. Next slide, please. Politico did a really cool piece about one of our founders, Atul Nagase, and talking about if not us, then who, right? This is sort of our moment and our call to action too, so it's pretty exciting. Morgan Freeman used "This is our shot" last week, which was really exciting. Although it's not about Morgan Freeman, it's about physicians sharing trusted information. They're probably more likely to believe you than Morgan Freeman. Our Vikino Teya individuals are doing a lot of great work too, and using a lot of art and graphics and music. They have some celebrities within the Latinx community speaking up too. Next slide, please. And it's working, right? That's the bottom line, right? So it's hard to measure sometimes. Really, the goal ultimately is getting shots in arms. But if you look at the number of people using the hashtag and sort of the digital reach, if you will, and the number of impressions and eyeballs that sort of see this information and see this content, it's really growing. Yeah, it has ebbs and flows, but on average, we're getting somewhere between 4.5 and 4.45 and nearly 50 million impressions per week across our social media platforms, just to getting this information in front of eyeballs. We're creating sort of a social norming event as well, especially back in December and January, and a lot of healthcare workers and doctors were getting their shots. You took this sort of private act and made it a public act of service too when you're getting your vaccine and sharing it online as well. Next slide, please. All right, so the first mile, and as I mentioned before, we're really entering this sort of inflection point, right? So the first mile was just kind of getting the components working, and now we've sort of entered phase 2, which is really the quest to build that trust, and really, we've sort of dubbed it Project July 4th. By July 4th, we want to get 70, 80, 90% of the country vaccinated and claim our independence from COVID, right? That's kind of really the phase we're in right now. So we're really trying to ramp up these efforts and start addressing people who are more hesitant, and now that it's eligible for everyone, or soon most anyone will be eligible. That's really kind of the phase we're in now. And then sort of that last mile in those really hard to reach communities, be it disenfranchised or geographically hard to reach, or there's a lot of misinformation within those communities too. So this is kind of the phases of our campaign. We're sort of at the beginning of phase 2 right now. Next slide, please. All right, and this is sort of that trajectory. If we continue vaccinating at this rate, we'll get hopefully somewhere near herd immunity in that 70, 80, 90% range, or right about around the beginning of July. Next slide, please. All right, so this is kind of our map, and just so you guys know sort of what we're doing. So we want people to join the movement to learn what we're doing. We want to help recruit your friends or family members. We want to help give you the tools. We want to provide some education regarding how to have these conversations, where to have these conversations, how to do this in the digital space as well too, since that's a place that's pretty uncomfortable for a lot of our physicians. And then get to a healthier world, right? That's the idea. Sorry about the formatting here. Change. So really, here's my call to action for you guys, right? We want you guys to join the movement. We have a live speaker series we're doing every Tuesday evening. We have an all coalition Zoom meeting. We have once a month, and then we have some work group meetings as well. And then these we call them health heroes, these hero education sessions as well, talking about social media, community advocacy, vaccine messaging, whatever people want. And whatever we can help provide them to be better advocates. That's what we're trying to do. Next slide, please. All right. Again, so this is kind of, I'll go through this really brief here, but just so you guys get an idea of sort of what we're aiming for here in terms of the pieces of information and training. And we're trying to add value to you guys, not create more work for everybody, right? So again, how to have these conversations, where to have the conversations, and in-person self-directed training resources to help you be a better vaccine advocate. Next slide, please. So we'll skip this. Next slide, please. I kind of already said that. So really quick, I want to share the top 5 evidence-based messages too. So if this is something you're interested in, and I apologize if many of you already know this as well, but just kind of from a lot of the different research going around, these are sort of the 5 base key messages that we're really trying to put out. Number 1 is safety, right? The vaccine will help protect you from getting sick from COVID. Millions of Americans have already been safely vaccinated. The number 2 is the side effects, right? And so it's normal to get side effects, right? It means your body is building the immune system. It's working. That's the way we're trying to frame this, and as opposed to side effects being a bad thing. So I tell my patients, if you don't feel sick afterwards, that makes me a little bit worried, right? And so I want you to feel sick afterwards. And when they hear that, they're like, oh, okay. Obviously, it's very effective, and you have a choice, right? And the best vaccine is the one you can get in your arm first, and that's really the most important message we've been hearing. Speed, right? People worry about the vaccine being created too quickly, and just talking about the 20 years of research that has gone into this, and that it wasn't created quickly. It was just the last mile was very public. And then lastly, questions, right? If people have questions, talk to your doctor, talk to your provider. Don't go online and talk to your random strangers who don't know anything about vaccines. So really trying to make sure people that ultimately the choice is yours. You can get it now, you can get it later, or not at all, but really talk to your doctor, talk to your healthcare provider to discuss if that's right for you. And I think that's the most important thing. People don't want to feel coerced or forced into vaccines. So really making sure people know that there is autonomy at the end of the day. Next slide, please. And then really just quickly some things to say and not say, right? Use the word vaccination, safe and effective, authorized by the FDA, get the latest information, use the word public health, not government, use health and medical experts, not scientists, and then people have questions, right? And so kind of using some of these phrases, this is from the Ad Council that did a lot of good research here, talking about what to say and what not to say as well, but this is kind of self-explanatory. Next slide, please. So really, I'm going to quote Don Berwick here because anyone in the health policy and public health world knows Don Berwick has done incredible work here. And really, this is, again, the work of a physician as a healer cannot stop at the door of an office, the threshold of an operating room, or the front gate of a hospital. Professional silence in the face of social injustice is wrong. Either engage or assist the harm. There is no third choice. So this is my call to action for everyone here right now, is we have to do, if you're not doing something already, that's okay, don't feel guilty, just start doing it now. Next slide, please. And then really here, this is kind of the ways you can get involved. If people want to get involved, we'd love to have you at some of our webinars, or go to our website. This is our shot.info. And then you can actually join, if you want to join one of these work groups, you can leave this slide up for a second so you can copy down this bit.ly link. to go to a Google form to fill out some information there, and actually one of our staff members will actually call you and reach out to you, email you about doing a training, about attending one of our seminars, and make sure we get you on our email list as well if you're interested more in doing this kind of in the social media space especially. All right, and I think I have one more. I think that's my last slide actually. Eric, you're in charge. I do whatever you tell me to do.
Thanks so much, Alex. I totally appreciate the talk. We have a few minutes for questions. I want to start by plugging. This is our shot. So I think a lot of us are kind of Zoom fatigued by now. I try to attend every Tuesday night meeting. They always have an amazing speaker. I always take away something and learn something. And you make these great connections with other people who are involved in the mission and feel the same way that we all do. So I encourage you all to sign up. My question that we got from a registrant was, so this is a person who is, nominally involved on social media, has a Facebook page, but, otherwise doesn't really do very much. So what's one thing that kind of the average physician or healthcare worker can do to get the word out, just dip their toes into social media? Where do we start?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, 80% of adults have a social media account. I think the most recent numbers are about 50 or 60% of physicians use those social media accounts in a professional sense. So I think really the most important thing is if you see something about good information, like that post or share that post. If you see someone who makes a comment, because we're all part of this too, is we're all networks. We're all members of these different groups, whether we know it or not, right? Obviously, I do a lot of sports medicine. I'm a member of a lot of sports medicine and athletic groups, and I see people in those groups kind of posting things which they're not exactly wrong, but they're not exactly right, or just they're flat out wrong, and just responding to some of those things and saying, you don't have to identify yourself as a physician, but you can simply respond to some of that, and you can kind of sort of stop misinformation in its tracks before it starts to snowball downhill. Because if someone posts something wrong, then they're going to be, who knows, countless how many people see that wrong information and they may see that as the truth. They see something wrong and they see you respond with good, accurate medical information, that's going to sort of stop that snowball effect of misinformation down the slope. I think again, if people are different levels of social media use. Some people are lurkers and they just kind of look at things. Some people like things and share things. Some people create their own content. And wherever you are on that sort of spectrum of social media use, we encourage you to help, like things and share things, and maybe stretch your comfort zone a little bit. If you don't usually post things, share somebody's good information and somebody's accurate post, and then, or maybe comment on it as well too. So I encourage everyone to sort of, whether you use it professionally or not, even as sort of a lay person in a lay group, doing something, making comments, responding to people's questions is really valuable sometimes. That was a long answer, I'm sorry.
What suggestions do you have for people who, remarks that are made that are negative towards something that you've posted? Do you ignore them? Do you try to respond? How do you handle that?
So there are two ways. If they respond with sort of a question and they post something which is a little bit more naive or just from a place of non-understanding, then I'll often respond to that. If it's something that's just downright mean and aggressive, I'll just ignore it entirely, right? The hashtag don't feed the trolls. Have you guys heard that before? No one has ever changed their mind from lots of angry social media conversations, right? Whether it be with your crazy family member or someone online who you don't know at all, right? So if someone is mean and aggressive and very kind of confrontational, just ignore it, delete it, even block them if you want to. If somebody asks a question that's maybe genuine, or they engage in sort of a more collegial manner, then I would sometimes respond to those as well too. But I try not to get into the back and forth, because that doesn't go anywhere. So if someone says something incorrect, I'll respond to it. If they respond again, I might just leave it based on a lot of things.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to transition to our next speaker, but we are going to, at the end of this talk, we're going to post the video of these talks on our website and our YouTube page, and we'll also put links to the organizations that have been mentioned today. So This Is Our Shot and Shots Heard Around the World. And speaking of Shots Heard, we are very pleased to introduce you to a rock star in the pediatric community. This is Dr. Todd Mullen. He's a pediatrician CEO and co-owner of Kids Plus Pediatrics, which is actually a great follow on social media, even if you don't live in the Pittsburgh area, which is where Todd practices. He's led clinical vaccine research at Kids Plus and has done many studies as a sub-investigator and principal investigator. And what he's going to talk to us today about is how he is co-founder of Shots Heard Around the World, which is a nonprofit dedicated to empowering vaccine advocates. And now he's a senior advisor to the Public Goods projects on vaccine advocacy. Those of us who are involved in social media know Todd well. He is a leader in the field, and we are really excited to have him here tonight. So Todd, thanks for staying up late, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much. I'm gonna see if I can show my screen, and can you guys tell me if that's coming across? Do you just see my screen now?
Perfect.
Awesome.
You're good.
Alex's talk rocked, and honestly, I've been learning more about This Is Our Shot, and I'm just inspired. And let me tell you a little bit about what we do, which I think is complementary. So here we go. Let me start my clock too, because Alex and I share that same. We both get excited here. All right, let's see. All right, so quick disclosure, I've done clinical vaccine research for 14 years, but now I do more vaccine confidence research and work with these companies over this past year. Quick tweet that this is my looking into the future in January of 2019, saying I was prepared to fight viruses, bacteria, malignancies. Little did I know the biggest threat would come from insurances, politics, and pseudoscience. That was before the pandemic, so you can call me Nostradamus on this one. Yeah, so like this is the monster we all fight. But let's be clear, and this is one of the problems we have. They have beat us to social media, which is an immensely powerful tool, and they've done so, and so they've driven the narrative, and the narrative is we're there for safety and toxins and you know, it's hard right or hard left, liberty or purity. You guys have heard this, but we need to also start telling the story of why they're there. And the 3 Ps are they're there for profit. You know, don't vaccinate, but use my oils or use my crystals. Or hey, government shouldn't be in your business, so vote for me. Or power through popularity, because as you know, algorithms on social media prize sensational content, which we are trying to fight. But that's what we're up against. You know, today 3 million people got their COVID vaccine, and nobody had any problems. Is not sexy. It's not. It doesn't really resonate. But you know, governments in bed with pharma and doctors, that resonates. So recognize what drives their story. And as Alex said, they are well funded, well organized, and truthfully, they're kicking our butt. And I'll reference an article that came out today that I was a co-author on with my daughter on this very topic. So if you're a healthcare professional or you're training to be a healthcare professional, and I told you headache, palpitations, diaphoresis, hypertension, you would quickly probably say pheochromocytoma. You'll likely never see a pheochromocytoma, yet this is what you were trained on, because like in 1940, that was really important. I can refer now for that. But our job is behavior change, and we aren't trained to talk on breastfeeding or sleep or immunizations in a robust way, or healthcare communication in a robust way. And yet we spend all this enormous amount of time learning inane things. And don't get me wrong, I have nothing against endocrinologists or endocrine tumors, but it's time to change. And so behavior change is what we do. Right? At the end of the day, Alex is trying to keep people from getting sports injuries or general family medicine issues, or we're trying to get them to eat healthy and to exercise. A lot of the stuff we know that controls disease, right? That's what we do. And yet we don't connect to our families in a significant way. Matter of fact, we're lucky if cumulatively we see people face to face for an hour per year. But look where people are for those other 8,759 hours. And even for the 1 hour I see them face to face, sometimes they're scrolling on their screen. They're on their screens, right? Alex said it, I'm going to repeat it. Why aren't we trained to engage families there? So as a matter of fact, we purposely abdicate that role. Our institutions don't support us. It could get us in trouble. What about HIPAA? We can address all that. But the point is, if you create a vacuum, it doesn't just get filled. It gets filled with absolute harm and risk and things that lead to harm and death. Now, these companies, I don't have to tell you much. You could look at their icon and I could ask you for 3 descriptors and you could give it to me, because they are in the same job as we are in terms of behavior change, but they leverage social media. So you know a whole bunch literally from an icon. And they know every other industry but healthcare is using social media powerfully. We are not. That has to change. And exactly back to Alex's talk. What are the 2 medical training communication fallacies? One, that you're going to impart all your wisdom face to face in the exam room. Don't get me wrong, that should be done. When you have somebody one-on-one in the room, it's a powerful moment, but you haven't been trained how to deal with problems in there. If they say, yeah, I'll get the vaccine, great, but what if they say, I'm not sure? So one, that you're going to impart all your wisdom. That's not true. We should be imparting it here. And 2, that you'll be believed. And if you try and come at somebody who's like, I don't want that one vaccine, and you say, well, let me tell you the risk, and you start throwing fear at them or data at them, you'll actually cause people that are hesitant to become more hesitant. So we need training on face-to-face communication, and we also need training on social media communication. This is the most precious asset that we have. Study after study after study, country after country after country shows that healthcare providers are the most trusted, most influential recommender of vaccines. Matter of fact, I did AAP's legislative conference a few years ago, and they said it's like most trusted profession are nurses, though pediatricians and family medicine's right up there. So it's like nurses, doctors, Sith Lord, and like congressperson, right? It kind of goes in that order. And we squander this trust all the time, because if we live by those fallacies that I'm just going to talk to you face to face in the room, that's not scalable. You may see on a busy day 30 people in the office, but not every one of those is a vaccine conversation, yet everybody is here. And by the way, healthcare and health choices are one of the greatest searches online, and people want their information when they want it. They may be busy in your office and have an appointment to get to, and the siblings crying, but they may be totally ready while they're at home breastfeeding or late at night and just want their information, and yet we're not there to reach them. And they don't want Kaiser or UPMC to talk to them. They want, you know, Dr. McDonald or Dr. Willin. That's who I know. And that is the trust that we need to build upon. So at Kids Plus, if you don't know our story, we are a little bit wacky. We have a full production studio called Evidence-Based Studios at Kids Plus. And we used that to create a video back in 2017. It was on HPV because CDC was saying HPV vaccine wasn't being given. It was called We Prevent Cancer. It blew up, 15,000 views, people calling us saying, hey, we want to come in and get our vaccine. But 3 weeks later, the anti-vaxxers found it and dropped it into their groups. Well, it drove our views up to over 105,000, but we got attacked with over 10,000 posts on our Facebook page from 800 different accounts, destroyed our Yelp and our Google ratings. Long story, but there's a research article that I was a co-author on, Journal Vaccine, on that attack. It's called It's Not All About the Autism, I think. But the point is, they are well organized and they are funded, like Alex said, and they have 2 approaches. They are, 1, pushing disinformation in a really powerful and impactful way, and 2, they attack the few of us that are pro-vaccine voices. And that we realized in a really kind of hard way, because here's a group in Pittsburgh getting attacked from all over the world 24/7. Their attacks are built upon overwhelming and isolating and frightening and ultimately getting you to take down your post. And they are really effective at doing that. And not just private practice groups, but we've seen tertiary and quaternary health centers actually not post things for fear of an attack. So they're not just scared of Press Ganey. They don't like bad social media reviews. This works. Social media platforms, by the way, have empowered anti-vaxxers to be able to bully people. And by the way, the real threats also. I mean, you know, death threats and all those things too. That shouldn't be tolerated. And don't forget the sensational content, that clickbait was incentivized by ad revenue. So the social media platforms that now we're putting CDC and WHO little warnings on there, it's like me celebrating the arsonists for throwing a cup of water on the fire that they started. So they have a lot to do. They have to be part of the solution. But again, we're squandering our trust. We have to be in that mix and bringing our voices. The job's not for me to go viral in New Zealand, though we were attacked from New Zealand, but it's for me to be big in Pittsburgh. And yeah, we've gone bigger than that, but I want everybody to be big in your community, because not only can you reach your community, but they also see you in the office and in the grocery store, to food driver, to place of worship or whatever, they know you already. They trust you. The data is unequivocal there. So we knew it was terrible to be victimized. We weren't going to be the last victim, that resources weren't available. And the most trusted influential recommender of vaccines was being silenced. So we launched a 4-pronged counter response, which basically became Shots Heard. It started in our practice. After 3 years in our practice, we tallied it up. I mean, we had spent close to $600,000 of our own time and our resources and in fees. We ended up launching a nonprofit to house this work. And I'll tell you what happened to that. But the 4-pronged approach is research. As I said, we had an article that came out. We collaborated with the University of Pittsburgh a Graduate School of Public Health, did research in a journal, Vaccine, that came out in 2017. And yesterday, we have a new article that came out. If you remember the Doctors Speak Up event hosted by ZDogg or created by ZDogg in reaction to kind of the attacks, particularly on our group and Nicole Baldwin's, we thought we were going to win the day with a pro-vaccine message. The article, I'll steal the thunder, and my daughter and I are co-authors on it. We're not the lead authors. The anti-vaxxers kicked our butt. 80% anti-vaccine traffic that day, over 100,000 tweets. Read the article. It just came out yesterday, and it'll give you some lessons learned on how to control hashtags and messaging and some strategies on social media. But Graduate School of Public Health from University of Pittsburgh, go. So research, we created a toolkit called the anti-vaccine toolkit. That toolkit now is being retooled. It's being translated into Spanish, Portuguese, and French. We do a lot of work now internationally. And so we knew, like I said, there were no resources when we got attacked, so we decided to work on creating it. We have a digital cavalry. If you're a Shots Heard member, there is no charge. Your information is kept private. But you now come to the aid of people that are being attacked. And I would tell you, Nicole Baldwin can tell you how that helped. I can tell you, Brad Bigford, lots of people. We now have a way to withstand these attacks. And by the way, when you withstand them and you don't take your posts down, you become somewhat of an Uber advocate. And you become somewhat resistant to future attacks, which is awesome. And by the way, anti-vaxxers, when we got our cavalry coming to our aid, which is how we got the concept, they are like bullies. They don't like to be pushed back. They go and look for a soft target. You become a kind of a quickly hardened target when you're a member of Shots Heard, which kind of supports like the This Is Our Shot campaign. You can see how it's complementary. The other thing is an awareness campaign. I've been all over the country. I've been in multiple countries around the world. I've worked with the International Pediatric Association, which is doing this work. And if you think we have it hard, you can get killed in countries like Pakistan for vaccinating. So recognize, when I've talked to groups around the world, they're facing some really hard deals too, but we also have allies from around the world. And so that's why we need to team up. And again, we were getting attacked from all over the world, but now we have allies all over around the world to help thwart and to really squelch out these attacks. Again, if you look at the numbers, 75% of people are vaccine accepting, 23% hesitant, maybe 1% to 2% are anti-vaccine. You can see that red arrow is that constant force that's 24/7, 365 virtually. We are not there in a meaningful way. Now, face-to-face, we're there maybe an hour a year, but we got to get better at having that conversation. I teach a methodology called AIMS, which is Announce, Inquire, Mirror, and Security. The relationship, there's motivational interviewing. There's lots of ways we can learn. It doesn't matter which one you use, but we need to get better face-to-face, but we definitely need to be using virtual platforms. And by the way, we have no support from our institutions. Nationwide Children's is finally, was one of the institutions really doing good work there, as is now University of Medical Center of Rochester, is got paid staff to start doing this kind of training. So I told you Shots Heard, a bit of a change occurred. We transitioned all the work from our nonprofit into our bigger nonprofit. It's called the Public Good Projects. If you're not familiar with them, you may be familiar with some of their campaigns. They run stronger.org that really helps go out to the lay public and help them recognize the attacks on disinformation attacks on science, medicine, and vaccines, and they're helping people fight back and not spread disinformation. Project Vector, VCTR, is Vaccine Communication Tracking and Response. They work with immunization coalitions doing kind of social listening projects. They're actually now expanding this internationally and then creating responses, because people that want to support don't want to do their own research and everything. They just want to be able to help amplify the message that's pro-vaccine, which is the exact same strategy the anti-vaxxers have been using. And now we have Shots Heard that's kind of like your toolkit and your cavalry at your back while we do research as well. So it's really complementary to campaigns like This Is Our Shot. So my call to action is, let's grow vaccination advocacy with training all the way through, whether it's medical school, PA school, nursing school, I don't care what it is, and let's mobilize those trusted relationships. They're the most powerful asset we have. We need communication training, both face-to-face and on social media. We need to really dispel myths. There's data to show if people hear factual information before disinformation, they actually are inoculated against it. But we also need to deal with the bullying and the threats and leverage that trusted relationship. And finally, hold social media platforms and those companies accountable, right? And accountable for both the disinformation campaigns and the attacks. By the way, I am looking for more followers on TikTok. So get out there, follow me on Dr. Todd Woe. I'm on Twitter. And I love that this is the kind of movement that we're seeing, and I love what you guys are doing. Thank you to the California Immunization Coalition and to everybody out there for expressing interest in this area. Thank you.
Hey Todd, thanks so much. By the way, he is an awesome dancer on TikTok, so
my wife would not agree with that.
Hey, so can you walk us through real briefly? So let's say someone is attacked on, I post something about getting the COVID vaccine and I get attacked and my Yelp page gets attacked. I call shots heard. What happens then?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I would tell people try and be a member of Shots Heard beforehand. It's great. You don't have to be a member, but being a member is really helpful because you're already in the mix. If you're not a member and you're getting attacked, if we see the attack going on, people can report it to Shots Heard. As a matter of fact, if you go to shotsheard.org to the website, you will see not only a way to join, but a way to report attacks. We have over 1,000 vetted volunteers. So if you were going to join, you get a Google's SurveyMonkey. We actually really vet out everybody to make sure we don't have anti-vaxxers getting in there. But if you're getting attacked and it gets reported or you report it in, we look and validate if that's an attack. Is it an active attack that's a large scale and going on at that moment? And large scale just means more than a few people getting at you. And then we'll mobilize the force, right? 1,000 people plus strong. But what often happens is little attacks are occurring, and before they even get to the level of being reported, we have a closed Facebook group, and they kind of self-deputize and see like a little attacks going out with like, hey, there's 2 or 3 accounts out there trying to trash this person with a really good message, and they'll go there. And like I said, they're bullies. They typically don't want to be messed with. By the way, if you are attacked, Chad Herman, who's our communications director and author of the toolkit and co-founder of Shots Heard, likes to say getting attacked is kind of like your badge of honor, badge of courage, whatever. I say it's a badge that your message resonates. They're not going to attack you in force if you're getting like 2 likes and 1 share, whatever the platform is. But if you're getting lots of likes like we were getting and shares, they're attacking you because you're getting in their way. They see your message is resonating. That's when they come after you. And that's where we need to stand strong, because again, if you talk to people who have been through an attack and stood up and stood by the science, they really become like, look at Nicole Baldwin, look at us. I mean, Brad Bigford, I mean, multiple times we're in the media, and we can keep reproducing that. And we have to reproduce that at the local granular level.
You mentioned even large institutions sometimes feel bullied, and they're, sometimes maybe afraid to advocate for vaccines, especially if the institution's led by, an MBA CEO or something like that. How do you address that, or how do the individual providers address that at the institution level?
I can tell you, after we were on the cover of the LA Times, Chad and I, our communications director, and we got a call, and I will not name the institution. Like, it's a quaternary, massive pediatric health center serving a large portion of its state. And when the attack came on us, and there were some other attacks going on, the CEO and CFO of this large, massive pediatric institute went to their 9-person communications team and said, do not run anything on social media about vaccines. Headed into flu season. Literally, we have a 9-person communications team calling to talk to Chad, our communications director, saying, like, how do we get them to turn about? And it took them like 2 months. 2 months. We were tracking their site. So all you can do is call them out. I mean, these people are getting tax dollars. They're the mecca. They're supposed to be the bastion of science and advocacy, and they're terrified of these anti-vax attacks. And again, that's partially because the social media platforms have enabled and empowered disinformation and attacks to work. So, by the way, they attacked our Google and Yelp rating. Yelp, thank goodness, has a protocol to get rid of fraudulent reviews. Google took like 344 days to finally get rid of the last fraudulent reviews. So you can understand that can kill a practice, and a hospital's nervous about that too. If you want tacos, you go onto Yelp, you don't say, wow, there's a 5-star taco stand and a 1-star taco stand. Let's see if those are fraudulent reviews on the 1-star taco stand. No, you just go do business elsewhere. That's a great way to empower people that are essentially trying to threaten and harm you. So we need to really go after the platforms for that kind of crap. And they didn't get rid of those fraudulent reviews until we went to the Guardian on the to get rid of the last reviews, and magically the day the Guardian showed pictures of the fraudulent reviews, Google magically took the last third of the fraudulent reviews away.
By the way, the 1-star taco stand is surprisingly good. So hey, I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked Alex. So you're on like every platform, like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. So if someone is starting out, they want to be engaged, they want to talk to patients, but they don't have the bandwidth that you might have. Where would you prioritize putting your time?
It depends who your audience is, right? First rule of communication is know your audience. Who's your audience? So while I have a Facebook and an Instagram account, I rarely use them. I started on Twitter. Twitter's kind of the gateway platform because it's concise, it's easy to learn, it's easy to respond to. That's where I started, but that's probably not going to be where you're going to reach your parents. It's probably not going to be, if policy people are there, other pediatricians and pediatricians are there. If you want to reach your families and you're in pediatrics, you're probably going to find them mostly on Instagram, still some on Facebook for sure. Facebook's obviously huge, but it's not where the growth is. The growth right now isn't even on Instagram, it's TikTok, which is part of the reason I'm there. And it's fun too. And if you're a bit of a goofball like me, then you get to sing and dance and do all these goofy things. But Twitter's a great place to, I think, meet up with all these other great people who I've met a lot of the people that are speaking and other advocates there. And that's a great place to build your team of support. But I'd say Instagram and TikTok are a great way to reach young audiences. And like any audience, right? Facebook was young and hip and cool once. It's now like, you know, its growth is like 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe. The growth is really, I dare you, go onto TikTok and look at the OB-GYNs. You know, they're way big because it's a young female audience primarily, and they have people with like millions of followers. And the reason I'm there is you get to talk to some teenagers and young parents. And now, of course, us uncool Xers and boomers are all headed over to TikTok too, which they make fun of us, and that's okay.
Wonderful. Is there any last word that you want to make sure that we all know, all the listeners know, learn from you?
Yeah, I would say please consider, again, this is our shot. Please, that is a great campaign to get to be part of. Shots heard around the world. We would love people to learn more about it. Just check out the site. If you're interested in joining, there's no obligation. You don't have to respond. We don't share your information, but it's a great way to support other vaccine advocates. And let's press our medical schools, our nursing schools, our pediatric residencies, all these groups. It's time to frickin' train us as a group on how to use social media powerfully. We are essentially abandoning our patients when we're not out there, right? I mean, that it is a fallacy to think you're going to deliver all your information face to face. So let's put some money behind it, some training, and some support. So that's it.
Great. Thank you so much to you, Todd, and to Alex for inspiring talk and having all of us older people get off our butts and get onto TikTok and all the other social media platforms.
Thank you guys, and thanks to Alex too.
Yes, there is an evaluation that will pop up on your screen as you close out tonight, and please do try to take it and let us know what you want to hear about. There'll also be a question about timing. Is this the right time to have these COVID conversations in the evenings, or do you prefer the daytime around lunchtime? Please let us know, and this will help guide our future endeavors. We do our next COVID conversation, program 6, will focus on pediatrics COVID vaccines, what's coming up for the children. So thank you very much and good evening.